The impeachment news is escalating. Now, like I said in the beginning, this will probably be bad news for moderate Democrats. Yes, I made a video talking about how even Nancy Pelosi says they might lose the House over this, but it is worth it. And it seems now that according to several polls, the majority of voters do support President Trump being impeached. It's still complicated, though. Just because a majority of voters support the impeachment doesn't mean Trump will still lose come 2020. But more importantly, while there may be some bad news for the president, all around, there's good news for the GOP. Well, actually, let me walk that back. I mean, it's bad for the GOP if Trump gets impeached, right? If he's actually removed by the Senate, which will never happen, in my opinion. But the Republicans might take back the House because of this. So what will the Democrats have gained? Now, I'll admit, if Trump has done something wrong, if Trump is acting untoward, if he's violating his oath of office, by all means, he should be investigated and impeached. I don't think anybody disagrees. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. There's probably some diehard Trump supporters who would disagree with that. But I think most people are like, okay, fine. The problem is where we're at so far, it's not here. And we do know that people on the left and the Democrats have been a bit shady. Schiff lied about contact with the whistleblower, and now we're hearing that the whistleblower might have apparently has a professional relationship, or did, with one of the 2020 Democrats. This whole thing reeks of interference. That's why I can't stand the conversation. But let's break it down to the more important point. You know what? Here's Trump. Here's the Democrats. They're fighting for 2020. Put them away. The economy is doing really well. So the Democrats are throwing a Hail Mary, in my opinion. It's complicated. I get it. But in the end, it's the moderate Democrats who are going to lose, and this could cost the Democrats the only majority they have, the House. Check out this story from Roll Call. Impeachment looms large in House Democrats' town halls over recess. Guess what? Protests are breaking out in several districts. Now, you do have the Trump supporters coming out and protesting, of course, but you have districts where the Democrat wins and their constituents are booing. I covered this yesterday on my main channel, but it's only escalating. Now I've got, 3 or 4 stories of protests erupting in Democrat districts over their support of impeachment. So here's what we'll do. Let's take a look exactly how this is bad news for the Democrats. It is. Like, there's some bad news for the president. I get it. But in the end, if the Republicans take back the House, what will the Democrats have gained? They're not going to remove Trump. Let's get started. Let's read this little bit here from Roll Call, which breaks it down. And then I want to show you some polls, and I want to show you the protests. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's several ways you can help support my work, but the most important thing you can do, share this video. I am competing with CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and these big corporate powers, and I don't have that pull. YouTube props them up. You've heard me say it before. It's a fact. They give them big algorithmic boosts. So that means the only way I can actually compete against a system that is rigged and to benefit major corporations is if all of you watching, if you support the video, or if you at least like the conversation, consider sharing it, explaining why. Let's read from Roll Call. The impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump has been a central concern at town halls for House Democrats across the country, with both safe and vulnerable members of the caucus fielding questions from Trump's defenders and voters who want him removed from office. So both sides. While recent polls suggest that support for impeaching the president has grown over the last 3 months, 58% of respondents to a Washington Post Schar School poll this week approved of the House's decision to launch an inquiry. Democrats have used feedback at town halls over the 2-week October recess to assess how their constituents feel about the matter. Now, look, here's my big problem with the whole thing. Russiagate. Okay, been there, done that. I'm so sick of it. It doesn't give Trump, carte blanche. But look, man, the Democrats have cried wolf. I'm just too over it. This is why I haven't done big videos on the breaking news around Ukraine. It's just, I'm not the only one. Many of us are just sick and tired. You're changing no minds. It's a waste of time. Now, I'm typically for transparency, so an investigation, fine, by all means. But the White House has responded in a letter, which we'll get to later in the segment, saying that they're not being allowed to cross-examine. That is not okay. Okay, I'm sick of the political gamesmanship. I just view this as the Democrats desperately trying to figure out something they can do to win 2020, and it is tearing this country apart. But let's get to the meat and potatoes here. They say, in safely Democratic districts, members walked audiences through the mechanics of the impeachment process and why it was an impeachable offense for Trump to ask China and the Ukrainian president to investigate his political opponents. No, full stop. Let's be real here. Trump's trying to dig into the origins of the Mueller probe. I get it. It just so happens that Biden is running for president. What do we do? Okay, how many times I gotta say it? Is Biden immune now? It's complicated, man. It really is. And I think, Tucker Carlson said it was inappropriate. I agree. Is it some nefarious conspiracy to win 2020? That's what the Democrats are doing. In Republican-leaning districts, represented by vulnerable freshman Democrats, opposition was more vocal. Constituents fundamentally opposed to Trump's impeachment protested outside town hall venues and interrupted lawmakers inside them. And this is where it matters. The Democrats won. They won the House because moderates did better. I think it's like the 800th time I've said it. I got a graph from The Economist showing that the far left, the progressive Democrats, they did not win. Out of 79, I think only 7 or 8 won. So we know the moderates, they're the ones who gave the Democrats that majority. And because of the moderates, it's the only reason this is happening. So what do you think's going to happen then? When people in these districts, some of which Trump won, and some which are more tepid on the please just legislate, when they see what's happening because of their vote, think about it. If you live in a swing district and you voted in a Democrat thinking it was the right choice, and your district mostly supports Trump, you're now sitting there realizing this division was on you. The Democrats you voted in are causing this. Now, look, you want to have an argument about what Trump did, what the Democrats are doing? Whatever, man. It's political insanity. But here's, at the end of the day, the National Republican Congressional Committee knows it's not about how many Democrats support impeachment. It's about how many districts can they win. And the moderate districts, I'd be willing to bet, are going to flip. And they're noticing this. They say Democrats in Congress are squandering their majority and not focusing on issues that are important to voters. 2/3 of voters in target seats and 66% of voters in Republican-held battleground seats agree that Democrats in Congress are too obsessed with impeaching the president and should be working on issues they campaign on, such as funding our military, improving the nation's infrastructure, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, and caring for our nation's veterans. A full 52% of voters in NRCC target seats and 53% of voters in Republican-held battleground seats say that the top priority of Democrats in Congress is impeaching President Trump. I get it. We can look at all the polls. Check it out. Here's one from Politico. Half of voters support impeaching and removing Trump. Yeah, how many of those voters are in heavy blue areas? A lot of them. Now, this is true. Look, according to this poll, we'll take it at its word, there are more people who are supporting impeachment. And look, I'm going to say this. I don't care about the Republican and Democrats' position on this one because we know what they're going to support. Okay, it's very obvious that when it comes to where you're going to vote, we've got 84% of Democrats supporting it, and we've got 81% of Republicans opposing it. But the real issue here is the independents. I've warned the Trump supporters, the conservatives about this. Look, this is the play that I think Democrats are launching, and it's worked a little bit. So for a long time, or not for a long time, but there was a poll I talked about where independents think the Democrats have gone too far left, more so than they think the Republicans have gone too far right. This is one indicator that the moderates may swing towards Trump. The Democrats seem to be sacrificing the moderate base. Everything we're seeing now, okay, let me show you these protests. Like, they're literally being booed. And this is the problem. While you do have 45% of independents supporting impeachment and 43% opposing it, is that they just say it. I'm assuming they're talking about impeachment because they also talk about complete removal. I think they're talking about removal, not just impeachment. They say respondents were asked a series of 3 questions: whether they support the impeachment inquiry, whether they would support the House impeaching Trump, and whether they would support the Senate's voting to remove him. They don't quite clarify which particular question they're talking about. But the point is, when it comes to independent support, well, you got 2% leaning in favor of supporting impeachment or removal. It may be that some of them support the inquiry to get some transparency, or it may be that they want the president out. In the end, this may be bad news for Trump in terms of his support going into 2020. However, the Senate, in my opinion, is likely not going to remove him. That seems like it would be absurd because the Republicans don't want to take that hit, especially in these moderate districts. So, look, let's say Trump is out completely. You still have these moderate districts that are going to be, they're probably going to flip conservative because they were before. They barely held on and got these Democrats in the first place. Check this out. Let's talk about whether or not any of this will have bearing on Trump's reelection. I think the answer is no. Now, that was a poll of voters. Okay, but while Trump's approval has dipped down at the start of the scandal and the impeachment inquiry, and his disapproval has gone up, take a look at this. His approval rating right now is not the worst it's ever been. It's actually quite average, and it's higher than where it was 1 month ago. That to me says a lot. Take that into consideration. Will the Republicans sacrifice the president in the impeachment inquiry to save face? No, because he's still more popular than a month ago, and his approval rating is still higher than a month ago, and his approval rating is higher than basically it's ever been. Now, look, I get it. We can go back to when he was inaugurated, where it dropped really, really quickly. I don't think that's a fair assessment. When he got inaugurated, yeah, people were like, okay, great, let's see what he can do, and then bad press comes out. But over time, the economy has improved. There have been scandals. You can basically see the scandals in the dip. But a lot of people are sick and tired of it, namely me. You know, I've skipped talk. I talked about China yesterday because at a certain point, I'm like, I'm going to let things simmer down before I get back into this. But I do not believe the Republicans will sacrifice Trump over this. But let's get to the bad news. Check this out. Slotkin, Alyssa Slotkin, a Democrat, hears from both sides on Trump impeachment. In left-leaning East Lansing, so many people packed into Grand Traverse Pie Company that police began blocking entrances to maintain the fire code's limit on patrons. But, they say, she was greeted by packed meeting with constituents last week that featured boos and applause. And not booze as in alcohol. It might be, like people were booing. After the Holly Democrat backed an impeachment inquiry into President Donald Trump in late September. She's in a district that I believe Trump carried by 4 points. When she announced she was supporting impeachment, you immediately start hearing people boo. Then people start clapping. And then the boos become louder. It is a divisive issue here. I think because that district carried because it was carried by Trump, we can see here that those who voted her in, they're going to turn on her. The moderates who voted are probably saying, what have I done? Why did I vote for this? We gave them the majority they are using now in their obsession with Trump instead of dealing with real policy issues. I think look, there was a study I read. It was by the New York Times. And they said when moderate voters were presented with news showing that the Democrats were pushing far left, they were less likely by 6 points to vote for Democrats. That says to me, the Democrats know if they talk about policy, they are in trouble. And they can bless their little hearts that AOC recently came out with a proposal to give access to federal welfare to all illegal immigrants. That's insane. I have not met, I get it. You talk to someone like AOC and her supporters, they'll just defend her no matter what. The same can be said with Trump's diehard supporters. They'll defend him no matter what. But when you talk to the actual voter base, the actual real people who support or oppose, I've talked to people and said, what do you think about this? And the immediate reaction is like, these people are insane. Yup. And they know it. But I'll tell you what dominates the conversation. This. I think that's on purpose. If they talk about their policies, they're going to lose everybody. Best not to let moderates know what we're planning, right? But check this out. Republicans warn Max Rose GOP voters will remember his pro-impeachment flip at the polls, mark my words. Max Rose is also he's in Staten Island. Yep, Staten Islanders joined an anti-impeachment rally targeting Rep. Max Rose, who initially said no and then said yes. Hey, look, Tulsi did the same thing. I am not a fan of this. And this is what you get. The people who voted you in, who thought you were going to... Look, man, in a sense... I understand why a moderate district, why some conservatives might be like, I'll vote for the Democrat. Get some market competition in there. Get some pushback. But now look what you've done. And I imagine a lot of them are saying this was a mistake. But it's not just in these districts, though. Trump supporters are coming out in various districts. Check this out. Dueling protests over impeachment outside Charlie Crist's office. Now, he's a Democrat. You're getting pro and anti-impeachment. This is where I start getting the nuance, right? We've seen the people supporting the president. Now we're going to see some people opposing the president, but people still coming out to oppose the impeachment. Check this out. South Carolina Republicans protest Joe Cunningham over impeachment, which he doesn't support. It's even getting to that point, right? GOP accuses Democratic congressman of impeachment behavior. It's not even if you're coming out in support. This is how much it's having a real backlash. Now, look, whether these polls are right or wrong, I can't tell you. There have been instances where polls have been wrong, polls have been right, and I tend to err on the side of I'll just trust the polls. I think a lot of these organizations have amended their methodologies, and that's fine. But I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters at all for the most part. We look at that Politico poll. Okay, 45% of independents support impeachment. That may matter. It may. But in the end, the vote in the individual districts is much, much more important. The national level isn't what you necessarily need to be paying attention to. It's these districts. Look, you may see Democrats get riled up and go vote. Maybe they're trying to pull, this rallying effect. Trump won't get impeached. The Democrats will be outraged and say the rule of law could not be upheld because the Republicans, and that might rally a bunch of the Democrats to come out and vote. However, in these districts, the Republicans might take it back because the Republicans in these districts are upset over it, and that will flip the House back to the right. Check this out. Republicans seize on impeachment in a bid to retake the House. And it all comes to this point. Everything I've been saying, that it's going to backfire, it's going to be bad, it's going to aid them. Look, they've raised, millions, tens of millions of dollars, 15, 16 million, $1 million in 6 hours. They're making money off it. They're going to war over it. The moderates are shaking and being rocked by booing and protests. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but I can say it seems to me, and I could be wrong, it's fine. I was wrong. I thought the midterm was going to flip Republican, supermajority. I was like, dude, Republicans are going to take it. I'd say I was half wrong. I was definitely wrong about the House. They swept in, they took a bunch of seats, took the majority, but the Republicans did gain a seat, I believe 1 or 2, was it, in the Senate. So in the end, this is fuel for those who are either sick of the scandal news, me, and moderates who feel like voting in the Democrat has resulted in this divisive chaos. Like the NRCC noted, people want policy discussions. What are you going to do? Well, here's the important part. Earlier today, the White House, this was yesterday, they issued a letter to Madam Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the chairman. And they make a bunch of statements. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. It's several pages long. But one of the most important points brought up in this is that for one, there's been no formal vote on an actual impeachment inquiry. This is the 4th time, I believe, in the U.S. there's been one, an inquiry, but they haven't voted on it. And they should. They might not win. They might. Now, you're going to hear, I remember I heard something on, some Democrat said, the Republicans only want the vote so they can force their members to choose now before anything comes out. That's absurd. Look, let me read the first 2 paragraphs for you. They say, I write on behalf of President Donald J. Trump in response to your numerous legally unsupported demands made as part of what you have labeled, contrary to the Constitution of the United States and all past bipartisan precedent, as an impeachment inquiry. As you know, you have designed and implemented your inquiry in a manner that violates fundamental fairness and constitutionally mandated due process. For example, you have denied the president the right to cross-examine witnesses, to call witnesses, to receive transcripts of testimony, to have access to evidence, to have counsel present, and many other basic rights guaranteed to all Americans. You have conducted your proceedings in secret. You have violated civil liberties and the separation of powers by threatening executive branch officials, claiming that you will seek to punish those who exercise fundamental constitutional rights and prerogatives. All of this violates the Constitution, the rule of law, and every past precedent. Never before in our history has the House of Representatives, under the control of either political party, taken the American people down the dangerous path you seem determined to pursue. The Democrats started this. And this is terrifying, this letter. I was reading it, and I'm just saying, listen, man, I'm not going to sit here and say the president is without fault. I'm not going to sit here and say the Democrats are without fault. I'm not going to say that Trump is right, the Democrats are wrong. I'm just going to say the Democrats started a process, for whatever reason, that is resulting in a terrifying division of this country, a breakdown of it is the most extreme divide I have ever seen in politics. Even Russiagate. You had Republicans in Russiagate saying, okay, let's see what Mueller comes up with. Now it's just no dice. People are fighting. People are divided. The White House is saying you're violating the Constitution. The Democrats are saying Trump's violating the Constitution. Nobody can agree. That's it. At the end of the day, we have a very dangerous decision to make. Do we demand that executive power be reined in at all costs, regardless of the facts, even if it means restricting the right of Trump and the Republicans to cross-examine? Do we allow 2016 to go unanswered? Where did this come from? Why did it happen? Because the executive branch has too much power. Or do we say we must bring in the reins on the House and not allow Nancy Pelosi to play these political games? This is the big problem. I can't tell you which side to take. I can't tell you which side is right or wrong. I can tell you that simply by bringing it up, I expect flack from the left and understanding from the right. It's been the trend I've experienced. I'm not trying to tell you to defend the president or oppose him. I'm just trying to tell you that this is dangerous. And of course, because I don't fall in line, everything's going to break down. I'll give you a more recent example of this strange world we live in. Ellen DeGeneres was at a football game sitting next to George W. Bush. That was it. And people on the left were outraged. Ellen had to issue a statement defending herself. Many people on the right said, but she was just hanging out with somebody. It's fine. No, she wasn't. She showed up to a game and George Bush happened to have been there. They happened to have sat next to each other. That's it. It wasn't the moderates and conservatives complaining. I very well expect that moderates and conservatives will say to me, okay, Tim, you should take a side. You're a milquetoast fence sitter, yada, yada, yada. But that's it. They're not going to insult me, disparage me, accuse me of one side or the other. But I'll tell you what, the left will. So at the end, I can just say it's the Democrats who started this process. You might think Trump is evil or terrifying, and I think it's fine to point that out. But there's a reason why Pelosi resisted this for so long. I think it's going to hurt the Democrats in the House. Trump will not be impeached. Trump will be reelected. They will lose, and it will cause an extreme and terrifying division in this country. But let's move on, because I do have some more I want to highlight. Check this out. How the House could impeach Trump for obstructing its probe. I kid you not. After this letter, where they said you are not allowing us to cross-examine, they're accusing Trump of obstructing. Or at least that's the question posed by the Washington Post. I am sick and tired of the double standard. If it's true that Trump and the Republicans are not being allowed to cross-examine and call witnesses, the Democrats are obstructing. So why would Trump or anyone else cooperate? And they've brought it to the next level. Fine, if you won't cooperate, we will use that as grounds for impeachment. This is what I mean when it's a dangerous, terrifying precedent. This is a complete and total breakdown. How do we resolve this issue? If Democrats plainly support impeachment and Republicans plainly don't, if the House is saying we'll impeach you for obstruction, well, let me be real. It's the Washington Post saying how they could, right? I don't know where we go from here. I can tell you there are no clean hands. While the call Trump had with Ukraine was inappropriate, I think that's fair. Tucker Carlson said it, inappropriate. The way I phrased it was that Trump is pushing it, but he didn't cross the line. And I think it's important that people call him out, and he doesn't, he reins things in and treads carefully, because we do have a system. Look, I get it. If you think the Democrats played a dirty game, and we know that Ukraine, was working to get Manafort, it's a complicated thing, but Politico reported this. Ukraine was now scrambling because they worked with the DNC. Audio has come out. Fine. Listen, Trump's got to tread carefully, because it's not just about him and what happened to him. It's about where we go as a country moving forward. And I think it's fair to say he pushed it. To me, didn't cross the line. I think Tucker Carlson called it. It's inappropriate. Is it impeachment worthy? No, of course not. I agree. But there's no clean hands here, okay? Adam Schiff lied. Check this out. Factcheck.org. Schiff wrong on whistleblower contact. Oh, wrong, you say? Check this out. This is incredible. A project for the Annenberg Public Policy Center? Come on, grow a spine. They said, Rep. Adam Schiff, chair of the House Intelligence Committee, wrongly implied that his committee had no contact with the whistleblower before receiving the complaint. Schiff claimed, quote, "We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower, when the whistleblower had in fact reached out to a committee aide before filing a complaint." A Democratic committee official told Schiff, could we have been, he told us Schiff, quote, could have been more clear, but was referring to the committee officially interviewing the whistleblower and himself personally. It was clearly known, however, that the committee hadn't officially interviewed the whistleblower at the time. Wrong. They say he's just wrong. Okay, hold on, man. They say that Trump lies all the time. Many of these things, he's just wrong. Like they got mad that he said people were soaking wet, right? He said, I saw people, they came in, they were soaking wet. It's bad weather out there. The assumption from CNN and all these pundits was that Trump thought it was raining when it wasn't. Well, it was 88 degrees and sunny, so people could be soaking wet with sweat. The point is, it doesn't matter what you think Trump meant. It matters that when Trump said people were soaking wet, the immediate assumption was Trump was lying about the weather. Who cares? The point is, they say over and over again he's lying. Okay? I think he's a liar. I do think Trump lies. But I think all politicians lie. I'm not surprised. I do think, however, mostly they're wrong a lot. That's fine. We know they're wrong a lot. They're not smarter than anybody else for the most part. In the end, though, when it comes to Schiff, what do we get from fact check? Oh, well, Schiff said he hadn't spoken with the whistleblower. He said we, not I. We have not spoken directly with the whistleblower. That's not true because we did, right? The we as in you and your people did. But they say he was wrong. No, he went on TV and he lied. Why couldn't he just say it straight up? This is what happened. This is, why. Well, you get the point. Let's move on from here. Paul Sperry, he is a former DC bureau chief for Investors Business Daily, tweeted, Hill sources say fear is spreading among moderate Democrats that the impeachment inquiry may be irrevocably tainted by a series of actions taken by the Pelosi leadership, which the public will come to view as unfair and overly partisan. And this is where I bring it all back together. Yep, I think so. I think if Trump isn't allowed to cross-examine, I'm shocked by that statement. Is that true? From the White House? They're not allowing Trump to actually have a fair assessment, a fair trial? Whether, I'm not saying a little trial, but like, come on. We want to have an inquiry. We'll let the Republicans and Trump come in and state their case. What country do we live in? We allow due process. Yes. When I see what they're doing, I do view it as unfair and overly partisan. And that's probably why you hear booing and see protests. So I got a couple more things just to wrap up on. Document reveals Ukraine had already reopened probe of Hunter Biden linked firm months before Trump phone call. I don't like talking about this because it's so silly. But in the end, this story from Fox News, which is, I believe, just from today, we're learning, or I'm sorry, this may be from yesterday or late at night. John Solomon, a new document shows that before Trump even asked about it, they had already opened the probe. No quid pro quo. Not only did they not know about aid being withheld, but they were already investigating it. So what game can we continue to play? All I can say is the Senate won't impeach Trump. I'm sorry, they won't convict. And the Democrats are going to lose out. It's really frustrating for me to see the Democrats continually just spiral out of control. You know, they smear Tulsi. They ridicule her on Twitter. They mock her and belittle her. The Young Turks just came out attacking Tulsi Gabbard. Amazing. One of the few sane individuals on the Democrat side working to actually bring things together, who holds progressive views, many of which I agree with. And that's what they do. They smear and belittle. They prop up the crazies and they play these crazy games. I don't know what to tell you, but I'll throw one more bit of shade over at the press. Real Clear Politics, the curious case of the incurious press. Why, yes, it's correct. It's so weird. The Intercept recently wrote a piece, I tweeted it earlier, that Joe Biden has been using his career to enrich himself and his family. Does that mean what does that mean? Look, it just means we know it. We know it. And for some reason, the press just says, don't worry about it. There's a really great shot in Mike Cernovich's documentary where he's doing an interview with Scott Pelley, I believe, of AP or CBS or something, 60 Minutes, I think. And he says, you wrote a fake news story accusing Hillary Clinton of being sick. And Cernovich said, basically she was. And he says, well, that's not true. Cernovich asks, how do you know that? And he says, they told us. And then Cernovich goes, why would you believe them? And then his glasses fall off and he's stuttering, yeah. Why is it that whenever the establishment position is espoused to the press, it's fact? But Trump's position is always a lie and always wrong. I don't care to play these games. Trump may be a liar and he may be wrong a lot, fine, but give me the evidence. Period. Right now, there's none. It's a blank tab. They've been pushing impeachment nonstop forever. I do not trust them. They cried wolf over Russia. Enough. Your credibility is shot. I don't want to hear it. I'm sick of it. And the press is notably absent. Notably absent. They don't care. There's no journalism anymore. What can I say? The subject to me is very frustrating. It's why I took, people were saying Tim, take it F. I did. I talked about China and video games. And before that, I talked about the press. I let this stew for a little bit. And here I am back with what you can expect. The results are in. Moderates are facing a major backlash, and this could cost them the House. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 6 p.m., and I will see you all there.